Hello and welcome back. I'm DarcyBits and this is the Shortlist. Part 2, we are looking at the second set of cards that have been dociled out. Parceled out? Dociled. Is that a word? Why did I say docile? I like it. Dociled out. Which were made for the original Magic AI Showdown between me and B. And now we're going to look at all the cards that either didn't make the cut or did make the cut and we just want to take a closer look at. Or made the cut but never saw play. So, with all that said, if you haven't seen anything, if you're new here, go check out the old videos. You'll figure it out. If not, let's get started. Dream Sweep is a 3-mana blue instant counter target spell. You gain X life where X is the spell's mana value. We've talked about this previously. There are a lot of life gain cards in the initial forging pool. I ended up not going life gain, so I ended up cutting most of those cards. This is a perfectly reasonable card though anyway, and once again, as we mentioned, in the actual matchup that we ended up playing, which was blue versus red, well, red-green, but the green... It felt like a red deck. It was very much an aggro deck, red-green aggro. More green than red, but the spirit of red, if that makes sense. And with that, a lot of these like life gain things probably would have been pretty relevant. That said, if you're countering kind of small spells, probably wouldn't have mattered that much anyway. But I don't know. Overall, how do I feel about this card? It's 3 mana for a counter spell and some life gain. I think this could be cheaper, honestly. Maybe not for real Magic, but for AI Magic, I do think so. Azorius Honored Rogue. Didn't we do this last time? Am I wrong? Azorius Honored Rogue is a 3-mana, 2/2 red and green Goblin Warrior. Whenever Azorius Honored Rogue attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. I like this card because it lets you... It's always growing, but it's not necessarily growing itself. You can grow something else if it's more valuable. That said, it does need to attack, so growing itself is probably almost always the best call, just so that you can be making these attacks instead of attacking into something you're going to die. How good is this just generally? Like, 3 mana for a 2/2 that grows basically every turn if you can be attacked, if you have safe attacks. I feel like that's pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if there are stronger cards than this in real Magic, though. I think it seems possible. You're quite welcome, you know. If you hadn't opened the tomb, the rest of us wouldn't have been invited. Ionis, Azorius Paladin. I have to remember to read the flavor text. Flavor text is great. Octopuce. Octopuce is a 2-mana 2/2 blue whale with flying. For 2 mana, tap target creature. Once again, like, I think I need to talk about these cards more just in generally, because I do want to talk about them as cards in the same way that I would any of my normal card videos. But I can't help but think of them in the context of the game that was played. And just the fact that this is like a bear, a flying bear, is pretty good. Like, I think a 2-mana 2/2 with flying is already just very nice. Not just because it is decently efficient, but just because it's coming down early enough that you can take advantage of it. My biggest weakness in the actual showcase was I just didn't have much in the way of material early in the game. 2 mana would have been really useful. And then that tap ability is legit. Like, it is having the ability to tap things down, oftentimes as kind of a mana sink, right? You sort of pass the turn, and if nothing happens in the main phase, you can tap something down so it can't attack and stuff like that. Quite legit. Once again, I wonder how this fares to real Magic. I think pretty well. I don't think that you would find this... Like, if this was printed in real Magic, I think it would end up in the, like, sometimes played, sometimes not played, not just, like, super busted or anything, and not unplayably either. I quite like it. Once aboard the Herudagat, the brine water sharks grew fat and lazy, all but forgotten by the river. The jagged walls were home to a school of squid and its 300-pound prey. There's a lot going on in there. I guess the whale is the 300-pound prey, probably. Demonic Rebirth is a 4-mana blue instant return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Flashback for 7. Whew, interesting. So it's 4 mana to put something on the battlefield, and it's instant speed. So that's already just better than most reanimation effects in real Magic, I think, personally. The fact that it's instant speed is a big upside. I really am a big fan of Graveyard Shift, which is from New Capenna, where it is a sorcery that can gain flash if you meet certain conditions, and it's like I think it's still like a 5 mana resurrect. But it feels great. Being able to actually instant speed res something feels really good for a lot of reasons. Either to, like, you know, have a free block when your opponent didn't expect you to have a blocker, or just to flash it in on the end of your opponent's turn so that there's as minimal time to interact with it, sort of giving something pseudo haste. Really, really nice. So just that alone feels great. Flashback 7 is a lot. Might be worth it. Probably you're not really getting much cheat value out of it at that point, but you would be getting just recursion value, right? Like the idea that my best piece has died and I still want to use that best piece. Right, so a lot of value in the flashback. It's expensive, but probably worth it in a lot of games. I like this card a lot. Now, from a Urza's AI standpoint, there's just a lot of stuff that resurrects cheaper and better than this. I don't think we saw any in the actual game, unfortunately, but I think just in general, I ended up not really running any recursion because I wasn't like self-milling or anything. The odds of me actually having something worth recurring were pretty low, so I was more prioritizing cheat from hand effects instead of, or cheat from the top of the library. I think I have a few that did that. We'll see them when we get to them. Oh, I once again forgot to read the flavor text. It's always Resurrection Sunday in Aether Vial. Nice. I like that. Halamar Trudge is a 2-mana, 1/2 blue fish with tap, add blue. How good is this? I don't know. It needs to compete. Like, obviously it doesn't need to compete, but from a comparison standpoint, yes, different colors get different effects at different rates, so probably this is actually pretty good in blue in normal Magic. But in AI Magic, I feel like a lot of that arithmetic kind of goes away because you can kind of get any effect in any color. So instead, this needs to compare to like a Llanowar Elves. And it is a 2-mana, 1/2 Llanowar Elves in blue. I don't know. That said, in our game, yeah, I think this would have been legit. It's not a whale, but it's a fish, and it gives you blue. Cast this on turn 2. I still play a land on turn 3. I can be casting my 4-mana stuff on turn 3. That's a significant increase. 1 turn earlier is really, really significant, especially when you're playing against aggro. Not that I knew I was going to play against aggro, but still. I had a lot of stuff at the 4-mana point, so that break point would have been really a big deal. So long as I have the memories, I can taste the brine of a sea beyond my reach. It's where I'll be again. Halamar Trudge. That sounds like sort of like genetic memory, right? Like that fish have, like salmon and stuff. Yeah. Silken Shiver Peaks is a 4-mana, 3/3 blue whale. It has flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. It's pretty cool. I feel like this could be probably cheaper. 4-mana, 3/3 flyer is already fine. And then every upkeep you loot one, draw to and then discard, which I think that's all very good. In our heightened power level of an AI Magic showcase, I don't think this was good enough. It makes total sense to me that this didn't make it into the deck. If this was 3-mana, maybe, but at 4, I don't think it's worth it. If only their songs were as strong as their teeth. What? Resounding Harmony is a 4-mana blue instant destroy target creature, draw a card. I really should have run more removal, I think. I had a big board wipe, so I thought that'd be enough. And it wasn't for reasons, and if you want to hear more about that, we'll get to it. It's in previous videos, but also I don't think that specific card's come up yet, so we'll talk about it more later. But yeah, 4-mana kill spell with the extra bonus of drawing a card. It's fine. It's not super great. It's fine. Again, especially when you're doing the arithmetic of how good is this for AI magic, the power level is very different. So it's not great. I could see this for 3 mana, maybe even 2 mana in that power level. As far as real magic goes, how does this feel? This seems probably fine. I wouldn't be surprised if this exact card does exist. Not in blue, probably, but still. This world is filled with great wonders, and we should all learn to respect and admire them. Innistrad Explorer's Journal. Bloodstorm is a 4-mana blue instant, destroy target non-land permanent. You gain life equal to its toughness. This one's actually pretty cool, because it does hit any non-land permanent. It's not just creatures, which is significant. Not only just in general Magic, the being able to hit enchantments and artifacts is nice. Oftentimes you have to run stuff that aren't great if the enchantments and artifacts aren't there. And then you kind of have this like pseudo-dead card, or at least like a weak card if you don't have a good use case for it. So having something that can hit creatures or enchantments and artifacts is excellent, and you'll probably be happy to pay the extra mana for that flexibility. Then you gain life. And that's kind of a cool one too, because it means that you're spending this card as it's a flexible card that can hit enchantments and artifacts if you need to do that. And if you don't need to do that, you're getting some life gain, right? You're obviously not going to get life gain if you hit something that isn't a creature, because it doesn't have toughness. So it's kind of cool, right? If you're using it the way we expect you to normally be using it, which would be creature removal, you're getting a little bonus. And if not, hey, you're just happy you're able to hit artifacts and enchantments. I think it's really cool. Also, Planeswalkers. The only constant is death. The rest is only uncertainty. Reveal! Hey! This is another one. Yeah, okay. So, for the first time in this video, let's talk about art. I drew a bunch of cards with art. I gave them art based on what was going on, and some of them made them into the deck. Most of them made them into the deck, I think, but not all of them. I can't remember if this one made it into the deck or not. Reveal is a 3-mana blue instant. Reveal the top card of your library. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you do, copy it. I love this card. This card's so funny to me. I think I did run it, and I just never had a good opportunity to use it. It's one of those cards that's not very useful if you don't combine it with, like, scrying or like a vampiric tutor, right? Put a card on top. Search your library for a card, put it on top of your library. At that point, it's very good. The fact that you get to cast the top card of your deck copied for 3 mana, that's so strong. But if you don't have a way of controlling the top card of your deck, it could do nothing. It could hit a land. It could hit something that's, not nothing, but like weak or situational. But I do just really like this card. I think it's really, really cool. The fact that it's instant, so you can like kind of flash in the top creature of your deck or whatever if you want to, stuff like that. Just, I don't know. I love it. Of course, I drew just like someone being like, huzzah, look at this thing. I don't know. Also, just the name being Reveal is so funny. Reveal, what's that do? You reveal the top card of your library. It was said that the alligators in the waters of Crosa are among the largest and fiercest of all life in Thrawn. Juriok the Trickster. The alligators in the water of Crosa are among the fiercest in Thrawn? Does that make sense? I don't know. But yes, you can see obviously I depicted an alligator because it told me to. I'm not sure if that's actually an alligator. It might be a crocodile. I don't care. Those aren't different creature types in Magic, right? They're all alligators? Or are they all crocodiles? I don't remember. Gateway Analyst is a 4-mana 2/3 blue human wizard. As an additional cost to cast this spell, reveal a card at random from your hand. That is a cool additional cost. Let's see that in real Magic. That's fun. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. To reveal a card you hold, put it on the bottom of your library, then you may reveal that card. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason this card did not make it into the deck is the pure fact that doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm never sure what the best policy is when it comes to reminder text. We know that reminder text doesn't actually have real rules, but it's more interesting to treat it as if it does, as long as we know what it's connected to. Usually when it comes to AI magic. My favorite times is when the AI just comes up with its own keyword and then gives you reminder text for that keyword that they just made up. So in that case, you have to respect the reminder text as being real text. But here it's not connected. It's saying this is how you reveal a card. And it's like, well, we know what revealing a card is. Your reminder text doesn't really make any sense to be treated as real in that case because we know what that means. But I guess it doesn't really matter. Put it on the bottom of your library, then reveal that card. You can't have a... whatever. Either way, if we run this as expected, kind of cool. It's a 4-mana 2/3 that also lets you cast a random card from your hand. If you know what's in your hand, if your hand is like relatively small, you can pretty reliably hit the thing you want to hit, which could be totally worth it. As a 2/3, you're kind of getting like, I don't know. You're kind of casting a random spell in your hand for like 2 mana, which is pretty good, I guess. I like it. I think it's cool. Obviously, I got to a point where I only put whales in the deck, so there's very few non-whales that were considered. Some leviathans, I think, stuff like that, but that's about it. So I think it's a big part of what kept this one out of the deck. But I do like this card a lot from a design standpoint. It's just a really fun one. I like some random stuff, but from your hand, so it's not pure random. It's cool. If only the inhabitants of Mirrodin could explain what makes me tick. Master of Waves is a 2-mana blue instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It fights target creature and opponent controls. Draw a card. That's pretty efficient. That's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not a ton of it's a fight effect where your creature is a bit bigger, so it's less likely to die and more likely to kill. Or not more likely, but like can kill more things. Also theoretically you could then attack with it if the coast is clear and still get the +2 power through. So it is doing a decent amount. And then you drawing a card, making it into a cantrip. I like this card a lot. I think this card is like a really, really solid, reliable card. I kind of wish I'd played this, but probably wouldn't have mattered that much. Again, I didn't have like early game creatures to really take advantage of this, and I'd probably most likely prefer to just kill something, but it's cool, right? It's a cheaper removal effect because it's only 2 mana, and it has the upside of buffing the power if you can still attack that turn, and you get to draw a card. Really, really solid. We're a terrifying sight to those who are unwise enough to encounter us. Baron, Master of the Hunt. School of Whales is a 3-mana 3/4 blue whale with Island Walk. This creature can't be blocked as long as defending player controls an island. It also taps to add colorless. I'm legitimately surprised I didn't include this one. What the heck? This is rad. Being able to like play this early, not super early, but at turn 3 seems legit. It's a 3/4 blocker for that one round, and then you can start tapping it to add colorless. I guess I had other creatures that could give me mana, but I feel like they were like 4 or 5. The fact that this comes down on 3 is probably legitimately relevant. I like this card a lot. Compared to the other like blue mana dork we saw, which that actually did make colored mana, to be fair. It only made 1. I think the breakpoints are quite different with 2 mana. They navigate the ocean's depths by instinct and wisdom, trusting their animal bodies to know where they need to go. I don't know, it does make you wonder. Like, maybe this isn't as good as it seems. It's 3 mana, so, if we assume you're playing a land every turn, you're still hitting, like, your 4 mana cards on turn 4. Because you can't tap it immediately. But it's, like, a decent bot. Like, it's a 3 mana 3/4. It's a fine body at minimum. I like it a lot. Lurking Whale is a 4 mana 4/4 blue whale with Whale Walk. This creature can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a forest, which is really funny to me. And it has lifelink. Damage dealt by this creature also causes you to gain that much life. This card actually did make it into the deck, and it made it into the deck because I thought Whale Walk was really funny. I was like, I gotta play the card with a Whale Walk. What's really interesting is, so first of all, Whale Walk, you would assume it's like if your opponent controls a whale, but instead it says in the reminder text, forest. I actually got a comment on the Magic AI Showdown, in which this card was played, that said that blank walk is a defined thing in the rules. It's not that like each version of blank walk, of land walk, has its own ruling. It's that the sort of templating, the structure of that keyword has its own rules. Which means that blank walk always means this creature can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a blank land, which is really interesting, right? Once again, as we've discussed before, do you treat the reminder text as written, or do you treat it as the real reminder text would be? And according to that ruling, the real reminder text for this would be a whale land. Not just a whale, but a whale land, which is hilarious. I wish I made some whale lands, honestly. That would have been really, really cool. Also, I just like the idea of a whale land. Like, I want to see more, like, weird creature land stuff. I don't know, creature lands are weird and hard to make sense out of, and I don't know if I like them. But the idea of, like, lands that represent, like, creatures that are big enough to walk on is super cool. Anyway, apparently that would have been the appropriate ruling if you ignore reminder text, as is the proper way of reading a card. Reminder text doesn't technically have rules. But when it comes to AI, you gotta respect the reminder text a lot of the time, I think. Otherwise, it's a 4-mana 4/4 with sometimes unblockable and lifelink. It's a perfectly reasonable card. I don't think it's super amazing. It probably shouldn't have made its way into our AI Showdown since we were trying to push the power level, but still a perfectly reasonable card. One day the keel was not smooth. One day it turned and saw all the dangers of the world. Also, it's just worth pointing out, I like this drawing. I think this is fun. They're tiptoeing along. It's just funny. This, of course, is an example of one of my anthropomorphic whales, as opposed to my normal animalistic whales, which I have both. Raphael the Crescent Eye. Ooh, it's another Raphael! If you didn't see the previous video, Raphael the Whale Poet, it was a recurring character in my forging. I intentionally tried to forge cards that used Raphael. Again, all of these cards were made using the Urza's AI deck builder, using only the deck name field, not using the card name or the mana cost or whatever fields, and that distinction is relevant because I didn't like ask Urza's AI to make me Raphael the Crescent Eye. It came up with that name itself. I did ask it to make me cards with the deck name Raphael Whale Poet, and here we are. Raphael the Crescent Eye is a 5-mana, 5/5 blue legendary creature Jin Monk. It has flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Raphael the Crescent Eye unless you pay blue. Okay, it's got an upkeep cost. For 3 mana, return target creature to its owner's hand. This is pretty good, honestly. It's a 5-mana 5/5 with flying, and you have to pay an extra 1 every single turn that you want to keep it around for. But it's not cumulative upkeep, it's just a regular upkeep cost. Honestly, I'm surprised we don't see upkeep that much. Like, upkeep is such an important step of the game that it's weird we don't see upkeep costs very often anymore. And then for 3 mana, you can bounce something. Repeatable bounce is so annoying. If it was 3 mana kill, it'd be stronger, but it's still a very powerful effect. And a 5/5 flyer it's good. I mean, that can kill someone in 4 attacks. Like, that is very powerful. Otherwise, it's 5 mana. It does come down pretty late. I don't know. Makes you wonder. Raphael speaks only when he chooses to, and only to those who listen. It is nice also to have Raphael as a legendary creature What is the story of Raphael, the Jin monk? It almost makes me think of, as we've sort of seen before, I think of Raphael as very much as like this whale wizard character. That's like human wizard generally, but like that has to do with whales. And the idea of like a Jin monk, it makes you wonder if they like transcended their mortal coil or something and became this Jin monk. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I like it. I already read this, right? Raphael speaks only when he chooses to and only to those who listen. Yeah. Mutate, yeah, that's right. Mutate Whale is a 2-mana, 2/1 blue whale. Sacrifice Mutate Whale, it deals damage to target creature equal to the number of swamps you control. Yes, for a while I was thinking of doing a blue-black thing. I made a surprisingly large number of blue cards that cared about swamps. And this is something I've seen a decent number of times in Urza's AI in general, like across lots of different foraging attempts. The idea of a card of one color that cares about how many, or if you control or not, but a lot of times it's how many basic lands you control of an off type. So in here we're seeing this whale that cares about swamps that you control. Cool. But this sort of idea I think is really, really interesting. I don't know much about real Magic that does this, other than like Domain or something where you want to have all sorts of different lands. I really like the idea of cards that care about land types of lands other than their color. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting as a way of sort of like encouraging multicolor stuff without actually like including the color, without it costing that color, or whatever it happens to be. Like for example, if you ran this in a blue-black deck and you hadn't drawn any swamps yet, you could still have a 2/1 on the board on turn 2, right? If this cost blue and a black, you couldn't do that. And then later in the game, once you actually have your swamps, you can sacrifice this to ping for 4 or whatever, kill a creature. I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot of potential in that specific design archetype. They seek the feeding grounds of a migrating tide. Shua Rumain, Seafarer. Rapid Rebirth is a 4-mana blue instant. You gain 5 life and draw 5 cards. I feel like this is probably considered pretty dang good in real Magic, and I don't know, it just seems so slow. 4 mana? If I play this on turn 4, I'm doing nothing on my turn 4. I mean, I'm drawing cards, sure, but I'm not developing material. I don't know. I'm spoiled when it comes to cheap card draw in Urza's AI, that this just doesn't feel good enough to me. It's wild. Maybe at 3 mana. I think at 3 mana this would be pretty good. Now my last thoughts shall be of the slain, of the stolen, and the cheated. Malakan. Azami Shorefin is a 3-mana 2/2 blue fish. When Azami Shorefin enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Dang, I probably should have run this. This thing looks rad. That's some pretty serious ramp, honestly. It's a 3-mana 2/2, which again is pretty fine. Like, it's not the best, 2 mana for a 2/2 is already not really good enough, right? But I do think that a 2/2 is probably worth more than 1 mana, generally. Either way, with the bundling, and 3 mana not being so expensive, like, I feel like 4 mana ramp is way too slow. Like, I don't want to be ramping if I have 4 mana already. I want to be doing other things, but that's just me. I'm not really a huge fan of ramp. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them directly onto the battlefield. Like, that's... Alright, yeah, 3 mana, ramp 2, and have a 2/2 body at the end of it? Seems pretty good. If this was a whale, I think I definitely would have run it. Which is a shame. I should have run it. Some dragons enjoy eating their prey, while others prefer the taste of blood. Huh. I don't know what that has to do with this, but okay. Weatherlight Veteran is a 4-mana 3/2 blue whale. It has vigilance and lifelink. When Weatherlight Veteran enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 blue and white refract artifact creature token with flying. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. 4 mana for a 3/2 with Vigilance and Lifelink. Is that good enough? Maybe? I'm not sure. Lifelink is powerful, Vigilance is powerful. Put them together, they're very powerful. 4 mana for a 3/2 is a little bit of a hard sell, though, I think. If it's flying, too, though. Yeah, probably. ETB, you also get a 2/2 that has flying. Well, okay. That's a lot of stats. In pure stats, that's a 5/4 for 4. 3/2 of which has Vigilance and Lifelink, and 2/2 which has flying. That seems pretty good to me. Honestly? Yeah. In battle, it navigates the clouds with the eye of a god. I like this card. This card's cool. I wonder if it's too slow, but I do like it. Owlbears is a 2-mana 2/1 blue spirit. When Owlbears enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Ooh! Oh, that's quite good. So it's like sorcery speed, 2 mana, give all of your creatures +1/+1 for the rest of the game, right? Not just for the turn, which for the turn would already be pretty okay. Not at sorcery speed, but whatever. But you're also getting a 3/2 creature, because it's going to hit itself. When Owlbears enters the battlefield, put a +1 counter on each creature you control, not each other. So at minimum, this is a 2 mana 3/2, which is fine. Dang, I wish I ran this. Ugh, I should have broken away from the whales matter. Whales did not matter enough. I just wanted to do a themed deck, because whales are... It was fun. Like many other intelligent, magical creatures, they can read, write, and converse with spirits. I wonder who they are. Spirits? Spirits can converse with spirits? That doesn't... Yeah? Alright. Krakatoa Whale! We saw this one in play, even. Krakatoa Whale is a 2-mana 2/2 blue whale with flying. When Krakatoa Whale dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. A warning to sailors everywhere. I did try to have the art make sense. It's something that is flying, and it's something that is dying, and it's a warning to sailors everywhere. It's a bit silly, honestly, and kind of gross. But, yeah, this card's really good. This card's excellent. It's one of those ones that... It's a 2-mana 2/2 flyer, which is just already going to be great in most situations. And then it can infinitely block, right? It can block and then die and then come back at the beginning of the next end step. Which, if you're blocking on your opponent's turn, which is, normally when you block, it's going to enter tapped on the end step and then untap as your turn starts without Summoning Sickness. It's like it's a perfect little loop if you wanted to have it do that. That said, what we found ended up actually happening was I ended up holding this card back probably longer than I should have in the actual game because I realized that my opponent could have pinged it down and then it would enter tapped on the end of my turn and not be able to block on my opponent's turn. So it didn't actually have that infinite blocker thing I wanted it to do, unfortunately. But really powerful card. Wasn't enough for me, but it's still, super good. I really like it from a design standpoint, too. I wonder if this is too strong for real Magic, because it feels really strong, but that tapped is relevant. Even if it's not always relevant, it is relevant. Jiyashi Megalodon is a 3-mana 2/2 blue fish beast. When Jiyashi Megalodon or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on Jiyashi Megalodon. This card's rad. I love this. It's a fish beast, which is a really cool typing to really exemplify that this is not just some fish. It's really easy to be like, this, you're summoning a fish? What's a fish gonna do? And no, this is some kind of giant fish that's actually a beast. It's a beast of a fish. And that feels really cool. I like that. That seems like a really cool way of being big thing that's not actually a shark. It's a fish. It's still a fish. It's not a shark. I know that shark are fish, but Magic defines sharks separately than fish. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I don't know. I think fish beast is a cool way of doing that. Wenjiyashi Megalodon or another creature. Yeah, so it's going to be growing constantly. It is when it already is a 3-mana 3/3, right? At minimum, because it gets that counter immediately, which is wild. And then if you have any other creature enter the battlefield, this just keeps growing. Now, it doesn't have flying or trample or any other form of evasion, so getting huge is not the most powerful thing, but I still think it's really good. The ancient practice of catch and release kept sharks from overrunning the seas and made the fisherman a king. What? Tuscan Whale! Of course, Tuscan Whale needed to have tusks in the art. Tuscan Whale is a 4-mana, 3/3 blue whale with flying. For blue, Tuscan Whale gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Simple. It is a flyer with already okay stats. 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer is fine. Not amazing, but fine. And then it has 2/1 fire breathing. Well, not even fire breathing. It also increases toughness. Like, this card's wild. On turn 5, if you get your land drop, this is swinging for 13 damage. Potentially, if you don't want to cast any other spells. That's awesome. That's so good. I mean, it's 4 mana. It's coming down kind of later than you want it to. Blah, 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 blah. I like it. This is my jam. The Suskani make much of their living from the sea. As with all Suskani, they are just as happy to eat food, however, when the food is unavailable. I don't know what that means. I gotta be honest, I have no clue what that means. Sky Whale is a 2-mana, 1/3 blue whale with flying. Tap, target player, mills 2 cards. That's it. 1/3 flyer. Seems pretty okay. It's whatever. The cold waters of the Sky Whale harbor. The cold waters of the Sky Whale harbor more secrets than the ship itself. The waters of the Sky Whale. Do you mean the sky? I think the waters of the Sky Whale is a fancy way of saying the sky. Maybe they mean the clouds specifically, where the water is. But yeah, I feel like I should talk about this card a bit more. I don't know. 2 mana for 1/3 always feels a bit weird to me. I think it's a very useful stat block. If you want to just like poke in for some damage, it's fine, but it's also a decent blocker. Especially if your opponent has some flyers and you don't, and you're like, all right, I got this 1/3 that can block a 2/2 and survive. Pretty good. And then you can also mill, which is decent if you want to fill your own bin. It's decent if you want to mill at your opponent, but that's probably not going to happen. But pretty cool. I like it. Gusty Impact is a 3-mana blue instant. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. This card is kind of cool. The fact that it untaps is interesting. There's like some interesting shenanigans you can do with that. At bare minimum, you can use it as a block, right? I've untapped. I attacked with everything, and then on my opponent's turn, I unblock and I untap everything, and they get +1/+1, so I can make some really favorable blocks. But that's pretty okay. For 3 mana, I think you could probably do better. We saw previously, like, that sorcery speed creature that put +1 counters on all your stuff, and this is 3 mana until end of turn. But it's instant speed, and you get this cool untap bonus. I like it a lot. I think it's cool. How strong are we going to get before we explode? Stet Khan's Scout. Hellfire Assault is a 3-mana blue and red instant. Destroy target creature with power 3 or greater. If you destroy it, Hellfire Assault deals 2 damage to any target. Ooh, this card's cool. I think B must have... Did I? No. B was playing red-green. I wonder if I made this. I might have. Yeah. I obviously ended up not playing. I played mono blue in the end, so I was saving some cards in the off chance that they might be relevant, but I did not go into red, so did not happen. But that's cool. 3-mana kill has to be power 3 or greater, so kind of inexpensive for that restriction, but whatever. In addition, though, if the destroy does go off, if it doesn't, like, I don't know, be given indestructible or anything before the damage hits, or before the effect hits, Hellfire Assault also will deal 2 damage to any target. cool. That could be a 2-for-1 in a lot of situations, right? You kill the thing that's power 3 or greater, and then you deal 2 damage to the thing with 2 or less toughness, and I like it. Also, I hadn't realized, yeah, it's power 3 or greater, not toughness 3 or greater. Still. I like it a lot. A swarm of metal hounds that was trapped beneath the wreckage of the Phyrexian seafloor city. It joined with the warlord and found itself possessed of monstrous new power. Corrosive Rain Surge is a 5-mana 5/5 blue Leviathan. When Corrosive Rain Surge or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control gain flying until end of turn. Dang. I actually had a ton of flyers, but yeah, it's pretty cool. If this just always had flying, I think this card would be a lot better. But it's pretty decent, right? Like, it's a 5-mana 5/5, fine. And then ETB, the rest of your board has flying, so you can get some favorable attacks that turn only. And then, if you cast another creature spell the next turn, or any kind of ETB, it doesn't have to be cast a spell, it can just enter the battlefield, then your board, plus this card, like, or not plus, but like including this card, gets flying as well for that turn. So you can consistently, it's not as strong as your creatures have flying, but it is pretty close to your creatures have flying if you can consistently be playing creatures every turn, or generating them somehow if you have like token generation or something. I like it a lot, but it is kind of slow, and it requires you to have an existing board for it to be relevant. Like, its ETB does nothing if you have an empty board, which, a little bit scary. Its large hide is protected by an electrostatic field that induces both vomiting and coughing in its enemies. Dang. Yeah. Search for Tomorrow is a 3-mana blue instant. Look at the top X cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So X is not defined. This is one of those interesting cards where if you use a strict ruling of the game of Magic, which generally you should, but, of course, the cards that are printed in Magic, are designed around those rules. So you would never see this effect in Magic, even though the rules do support the effect. What this really says is, look at any number of cards on the top of your library. Actually, that's an interesting point. There are things that say any number in Magic. That's like the closest thing to an undefined X, now that I think about it. Look at any number of top cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom in any order. So, what does this actually mean? This means pick up your library, put one card into your hand, so search your library for any one card, then stack the order of your deck. Right? That's actually what this does, which makes this a very powerful card if you have any ideas about, like, what you want to stack your deck into. I would be frozen in uncertainty if I had this kind of power. I'd be like, I don't actually know what order I should put my deck in. So I probably would end up, like, I don't know, choosing like 5 cards that I want to draw in my next 5 draws and then shuffle the rest of my deck or something like that. I don't know what I would do, but yeah, it's wild, huh? Like, that's really what this means. And I guess the question is that too strong? I think the answer is yes. Like, at bare minimum, this is a tutor, right? This is a 3-mana instant speed tutor. Put one of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of random order. Like, X can be your entire deck. Do it, right? Do it. So it's already really strong. But, I mean, is it? Like, if this card was real, if Magic actually printed this card, people would lose their minds. They would be like, holy crap, what the heck, this thing's so busted. And I think that it wouldn't be that broken. Yeah. I think it'd be fine. I don't think it'd be good for the game, because again, you'd sit there going, I need to stack, 40 cards into an exact order, and that's just too many things to think about, right? Sometimes you want the game to tell you you're not allowed to do something, because otherwise you feel the need to optimize that thing that you're allowed to do as best as possible, and that would be bad. If this was like, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then, I don't know, like, shuffle and scry 5 or something. No, that doesn't work. I want it to be something like, search your library for 5 cards, put one into your hand, and then the other 4 on the top of your deck in any order. You'd have to shuffle in between in the middle there, though. Wait, so it's search your library for 5 cards, or up to 5 cards. Shuffle your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the other on top of your library in any order. I don't know how you'd actually word that, because the shuffling in the middle feels really weird. But that's the version of this card I'd like to see. And I think it'd be fine. I think that's obviously that's very strong. Obviously that's super strong, but like, I don't know. Maybe tack some extra cost onto it. Maybe it costs 4. Maybe you I don't know, skip next time you would draw a card, don't, or something. I don't know. I don't think that's too strong. I'm probably wrong. Tell me how wrong I am. Let's move on. Wait, did I read this yet? 1 year and it feels like 10,000. Valkus, Colonia Archer. Is Search for Tomorrow a real card? I feel like it is. Trawler Whale is a 2-mana, 2/3 blue whale. When Trawler Whale enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life and draw a card. As previously mentioned, there was a life gain theme. I think this is a perfectly reasonable card. It's a 2-mana, 2/3. That's fine. It gives you a life, it gives you a card. Triggers all your life gain carrying cards, also just gives you 1 life, and you draw a card. So it's kind of, yeah, actually this card's great. This card's actually fantastic. Just 2-mana, 2/3 and draw a card. I like it. There's a bunch of blue cards that are just summon a creature, draw a card, and they're I think usually 3 mana for that effect, usually. Yeah. I like it. It dines on globs of water and drowns its prey in slurp. Sorry, that really caught me off guard. That's really funny. Falco Thorax. Falco Thorax is a 4-mana, 2/3 blue bird. It has flying, and when Falco Thorax enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and each creature that player controls. Huh. Once again, we're seeing that player when the previous sentence has referred to multiple players, but whatever. Those players instead of that player, who cares? It's fine. 4-mana, 2/3, flying. Ping each of... That's wild. That's like a fire... That's like a... What's that? Like a fiery cannonade that's one-sided, which oftentimes fiery cannonade is because you're playing pirates or whatever. Anyway. Deals 2 damage to all creatures your opponents control and pings their face for 2. And you have a 2/3 flyer at the end of it. For 4 mana, I'd play that. Dang, that's rad. Like so many of the aquatic beasts, the giants feed by breaking the defenses of others. Grind/tide. So if you've never seen any of these Urza's AI videos before, sometimes Urza's AI makes split cards using or at least names a card as if it was a split card. Is probably a more accurate version of it. So this would be a split card named Grind and a split card named Tide. The templating does not support that, so this is just Grind. So Grind is a 2-mana blue instant. Grind deals 3 damage to each creature and each player. Pretty good board wipe. It's instant speed. It hits face. This is like Hellfire from Hearthstone, actually, now that I think about it. I used to play a bunch of Hearthstone. I don't anymore. But the Warlock's sort of baseline board wipe was 3 damage to all creatures and both players, so you could, like, kill your opponent with it sometimes, or, like, not be able to play it because your life was too low. That's pretty good. Anyway, tired of whaling? Visit the gift shop. Seshi Sailor. Oh, no more Seshi. They seem cool. Phantasmal Drake is a 2-mana 1/1 blue drake with flying. You may cast Phantasmal Drake from your graveyard by paying 1 rather than its mana cost. That is pretty cool. 1 mana repeatably to create a 1/1 flyer. The fact that you can't... If this just lets you, like, summon 1/1 flyers for 1 mana, just, like, as many times as you wanted, that would be wild. But the fact that you, like, do it, and then it's not in your graveyard anymore, so you can't keep doing that. Means you're only gonna have 1 at once, so it's not a big deal, but, like, yeah, I think that's just cute. I think it's just cute is kind of the thing. It's not amazing. It's cute. Yeah. The spirits of the Mistborn phantasms demand sacrifice to be made to its grander plans. You know what this makes me want to see? This makes me want to see a blue phoenix, or like a blue-red phoenix, because phoenixes, they gotta be red. They gotta be red. I'm not arguing that, but this sort of like, this feel, like, obviously the effect feels very phoenixy because it keeps coming back from your graveyard and it's thing, but the fact that it's like, just like pay a cost and you can just do it whenever you feel like, I don't know, like, I think you could design a blue-red phoenix that would feel really cool, like some kind of like arcane phoenix or something. Like, I don't know. I think that could be kind of interesting. I don't have a design in mind. I don't have anywhere to go with that thought. Yeah. Spirits of the Mistborn phantasms demand sacrifices to be made to the grander plans. To its grander plans. Did I read that already? I feel like I might have. Vanquisher Behemoth. Ooh, a non-blue card. So rare, because I didn't save very many of those, since I pretty quickly decided I was going mono-blue. But before that, we got Vanquisher Behemoth. A 6-mana, 6/6 black beast. Whenever Vanquisher Behemoth or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, target opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. This is kind of a wild effect. That is really strong, but it is 6 mana. Like, this is going to come down pretty late. But I don't know, if you play this on 6 and it survives the round, at minimum it's a swing of, you know, your opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, a swing of 6 life. At minimum it's that. And then if it survives the round, with 6 mana, maybe even 7 if you play your land drop, maybe not, maybe you don't want to play your land drop so you have more cards in hand, you could theoretically do, like, I don't know, maybe like an X spell where you make a whole bunch of 1/1s and you just, like, ping your opponent down. Like, I don't know. Even if it's just, like, 3 or 4 1/1s. 9 more damage. At turn 6, I already might have poked them a little bit. Yeah, ooh. That sounds fun. I'd be into that. The longest sword and the most lethal gaze in all Ravnica. Whale! Yeah, it's Whale! It's the purest form of whale. It's Whale. 3 mana, 2/5 blue Whale. Whenever you cast a counter spell, you may create a 5/5 blue Whale creature token. It has cycling 2. Oh, that's so cool. I know that some of the cards I saved I never intended to play. I just wanted to talk about. And this is a great example. Like, by the rules of Magic, counter spell is not like a defined term, as far as I'm aware, right? It's not like mana ability, which means any ability that produces mana, right? That's a defined thing that cards can refer to in the game. But counterspell, I know what a counterspell is, you know what a counterspell is, but a counterspell is not a defined term. This actually means, if we're strict with the rules of Magic, is whenever you cast a spell which has the type or subtype counter, you may create a 5/5 blue Whale creature token. which isn't a thing. Like, that's not a thing. Unless there was, like, a creature that was, like, a counter creature, which would be awesome. Considering counter the thing that's put onto cards, counter the, fizzling a spell, are both two different things that are annoyingly with the same name. If they also made a creature type called counters, that would be so dumb. I could imagine that in an unset. Where it's just like, oh yeah, this is a counter. And so those would be counter spells, because they are spells of the creature subtype counter. And so you'd make a 5/5 whenever you cast one of those spells. This is so dumb. That said, it is a 3-mana 2/5 whale with cycling too. It's not bad. It's fine. It's a perfectly fine card, but the fact that it's like... I guess here's the question. Could you ever actually... The way this card is like intended, right? If we assume that there's intent behind the AI, which there isn't, it's an AI. Whenever you cast a counter spell, right? A spell which counters something, you may create a 5/5. How would you word that effect, right? If you wanted to make a card that does that ability, is that what it would be? It would be something like whenever you cast a spell which results in a spell being countered? I don't know. I guess it could be whenever you counter a spell. Would that work? Like, when a spell gets countered, does the source that countered the spell get acknowledged, right? Do you counter spells ever? Or do spells just get countered? I don't know. I think you probably could write a thing that says whenever you counter a spell, you may create a 5/5 blue whale creature token. Huh. Yeah, I feel like that's how you would do it. My days are gone. I'll never see the harbor, and I'll never hear the tide singing again. Whaler Morag. Interesting. Jonson Squid. It's Jossum. I remember this whale. Jonson Squid is a 5-mana star black whale. Jonson Squid's power and toughness are each equal to the number of swamps you control. Jonson Squid gets +1/+1 for each swamp you control. That's right. It's a 5-mana swamps times X power and toughness creature. It's so good. I wish I went blue-black. That would have been so fun. I wouldn't have been able to cast anyway. Like, the game happened so much between turns 1 and 4. Like, I want to play my stupid Timmy cards. Like, if you're mono black, this is just a 5-mana 10/10. Which I guess when I say that out loud, that's not amazing. Like, remember that stupid, like, giant green dinosaur that's like, I think it is just like a 5-mana 10/10, but it's like green. That's too many greens, but you know what I'm saying. Like, that card doesn't even get played, because it's like, I don't know, it's hard to play well, and so, like, yeah. You might play that in mono green, but you're not going to play it in this. And also, like, it doesn't have trample. Yeah, this card's probably not actually that good. You could print this card. You could totally print this card, and it would not even see that much play. The ugliest critter of them all. Great Whale! Okay, we had Whale. Now we have Great Whale. Let's compare them. Great Whale is a 3-mana 2/5 blue whale. When Great Whale dies, you win the game. So there's a number of cards that I forged and I went, I can't play that. That's stupid. I want to actually have some good games with my partner. I don't want to just play a 2-mana instant you win the game card. Now, in parallel to this series, the Shortlist, I'm also releasing a series of videos called Unplayably Overpowered, and this is what inspired it, right? Not this exact card, but this kind of thing, where it's just like, actually trying to make Urza's AI make this kind of effect for you is so hard. It just, like, yeah, every once in a while, the AI will spit out this kind of ridiculous effect, but, like, trying to actually encourage it to make that sort of effect, impossible. Like, the AI is just actually pretty good. Oh, wow, I forgot about this one. Yeah, I definitely didn't not play this because I thought it wasn't good enough. I didn't play it because, like, what do you do against that? I don't even know if I'd have a way of sacrificing it, but, like, yeah, it's a 3-mana 2/5. It's a pretty decent blocker on its own. And then just, if it dies, you win the games. Your opponent has to make sure they don't kill it. Like, that's brutal. That's so stupid. That's so dumb. We come to fill the ocean, not just to tame it. Humuktuk, Malakir Hunter. Tidal Crashes is a 5-mana blue sorcery. Each player returns each land they control to its owner's hand and creates a 3/3 blue crab creature token. I think I just thought this was funny. This is... I don't think I ever considered actually running this. This is not good. 5 mana, bounce all lands. It's a sorcery speed, so unless you have some way of not discarding cards at the end of your turn, you're going to have to discard all of your lands, or all, you're going to have to discard down to 7. Maybe you have 5 lands in play and your hand was empty and you have all 5 in your hand, or then you get to play one of them again, or whatever. But still, it's not great. Whereas your opponent has their next turn to play their hand down to hand size. And then you get a 3/3. It's not like a 3/3 per land or anything. Like, it's just... And creates a 3/3. So the board is empty of lands, except for a single 3/3 crab. There might even be creatures still. I don't know. What a wild card. No one will understand why we chose to sail through a cyclone. I suspect it has something to do with a single mother in an upper-class home on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas said that. Sultai Signet is a 2-mana 1/1 blue Vidalcan Artificer. It can tap to add colorless, and it can tap to create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. I kind of like this, actually. It's 2-mana 1/1 mana dork that you can tap to make a 1/1 instead if you don't need that mana. That's fine. Our ancestors left behind tokens of our thoughts and desires. They could not have predicted the utility of this invention. Cephalid Warlord is a 2-mana 0/0 blue whale. It has vigilance, and Cephalid Warlord enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. How good is this? If you have a way of filling the graveyard, whether yours or your opponent's, it could be pretty big. And it has vigilance, so you can like attack and block with it. Like, it seems pretty okay. But if you're playing this on turn 2, it's most likely a 0/0 and dies immediately, right? You just don't have things in the graveyard by turn 2 very often, so I don't know. A baleful whale was no match for a creature that could flap its fins. Arcbound Drake is a 2-mana blue 2/2 Drake. It has flying, and for 3 mana and tap, draw a card. I mean, it's a 2-mana 2/2 flyer. I think I probably saved this just because I wasn't sure how many, like, playable small things I'd get. And as we saw in the actual game, I didn't run enough. I should have run more. But, yeah. And then for 3 and tap, draw a card. That's probably fine. Like, in a lot of times, you can probably play this on 2 and have it as a blocker. And then just every turn, if you wanted to hold mana open for, like, instant speed interaction and it doesn't get used, you can mana sink this. But you have to make sure you're leaving this guy as, like, a blocker and not as an attacker. If this had vigilance, this card would actually be pretty cool. I think this card would be really cool with vigilance. Maybe it would need to be 3 mana, but otherwise, I think that's pretty fun. It sleeps all day and sleeps all night. It does its best thinking during that time. Do my best thinking while I'm asleep. That's kind of true. Grinning Skulker is a 3-mana 2/2 blue whale. It has flash. You may cast this spell anytime. You could cast an instant. That is what flash means. It has flying. Great. And when Grinning Skulker enters the battlefield, you may exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. That's it. I guess I just saved it because flash flying is pretty decent. Even though it's not that big. I mean, I ended up not playing it, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised that I don't think it's great. My greed knows no bounds. Krark Clan Iron Fist. Ushanti's Petrel is a 3-mana 1/2 blue bird. When Ushanti's Petrel enters the battlefield, draw a card. When Ushanti's Petrel dies, you may exile it. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Huh. 3-mana, ETB draw a card. If it dies, that's actually kind of cool. So we've seen this, like, cards that can't really die. Whenever they die, they come back the next turn or whatever. It's interesting that this is, like, exiled and then it returns from exile, as opposed to just start of the next turn. It enters the battlefield again. It gets returned. But I feel like I don't see that effect paired with an ETB very often. So this card's actually pretty cool in that every time it dies, you're going to be getting that ETB another time. You're going to get to draw a card again. I like it. That's really fun. It's not an accomplishment I would brag about. Ushanti, half-orc herbalist. So, Ushanti is a half-orc herbalist. Did they, like, make something that caused a bird to never be able to die or something? What is that? I imagine that... I don't know. Yeah, okay. Let's move on. Whale of a Feast! That's a great name. Whale of a Feast is a 3-mana 2/3 blue whale. When Whale of a Feast enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. Huh. That's fine. This seems actually pretty decent. Like, in my whale deck, we really found pretty quickly, hey, whales are expensive, and being able to, like, ramp a bit probably would be relevant. So if you play this on 3, and then the next turn you have, like, either 5 or 6, depending if you hit your land drop, to be able to play, like, a big, cool whale, yeah, it's probably pretty good. And it's a 2/3 body. It's not terrible. This is not, like, super exciting either. I like it. The best way to describe the abominations in a landfill is to put them in the mouth of a whale. Sure. Raphael, Whale Poet. Once again, Raphael, Whale Poet in name, even. Look at that. Raphael, Whale Poet is a 2-mana, 1/3 blue Vedalken Artificer. Not legendary, notably. This is an imposter. They are... For blue and tap, draw a card, then discard a card. For blue and tap, you may play an artifact card from your hand without paying its mana cost. Oh, wow, that second mode is very powerful. It does need to stick on the field for an entire turn, right? Like, unless you could give it haste or something. So it's not, like, super busted. People can react to it. But, yeah, 1 tap, just play an artifact for free. Pretty good. Obviously, I did not make many artifact cards, so this did not be a super relevant effect. But, yeah. I wonder if I could have. If I, like, asked the AI to make me, like, an iron whale, do you think it would have made me, like, an artifact creature whale? That would have been fun. Maybe I should have tried that. Raphael wasn't always so gifted. As a young man, he wandered the world, trying to find the mysteries of Eld. Then, one day, he found himself atop an ancient pyramid, gazing down upon the relics of Eld. You did it! Congratulations, Raphael. Also, I don't understand why you're a Vedalken Artificer right now. Rumbling Ravine Minotaur. I remember this card. Rumbling Ravine Minotaur is a 1-mana, 1/1, green goblin with haste. Rumbling Ravine Minotaur gets +1/+1 as long as you control a mountain. I don't know how good this is. Like, in an aggro deck, it's perfectly fine. It's a goblin. It has haste. It's almost always a 2/2 for 1 mana. That's strong. But I don't know. I don't know how strong that is. 1 mana 2/2 with haste. I mean, how big is a Swift Sphere? And that doesn't even have to jump through no hoops to be a hasty friend. Is that a 2-1? Is a Monastery Swift Sphere a 2-1? Or is it a 1-2? If it's a 1-2, that's quite different. I don't know. I think this card's just fine and not amazing, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be able to beat me. It certainly did. When the orcs tried to shove him into a ravine, he dug himself a moat and moat-side. I remember that. Prowling Krakens is a 3-mana 3/3 blue whale. Of course it is. Whenever a whale you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life. How many whale synergy cards did I actually have in the final deck? I have no idea. Like, I made a lot of whales, and I made a decent number of cards that have whale synergy, but I wonder how much whale synergy actually made it into the deck. Because, yeah, this one didn't. Whenever a whale you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life. Seems pretty okay. You don't tend to go super wide with whales, is the thing, so I don't know how useful that is, but a little bit extra damage. It's kind of like here's the thing about this effect, right? Is that it's very similar to whales you control have +1/+0. It's not the same because it doesn't change the math of how blocks work and stuff like that, and the damage happens even if you don't connect to face, but it's very similar to that. And is that good? Yeah, it's pretty good, actually. 3-mana 3/3, that gives all of your whales +1/+0. I'd probably run that. It seems pretty good, so I don't know why I didn't. This whale means business. Olmsted, Cloakbearer. Counterpunch! Counterpunch is a 3-mana blue instant. Counterpunch deals 3 damage to target creature, and 3 damage to that creature's controller. I'm not sure why it's a counterpunch, but it seems pretty okay. Yeah. I'd hate to have to find out if that was you. Shoal Firefist, Jungle Protege. Cobra Scribe is a 2-mana 1/1 black snake. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. That's great. Dang, I wish I had that card. I didn't run black. What good is power if you don't use it? Vanquish, Sage Librarian. Deepwater Leviathan is a 3-mana 2/4 blue whale. For 2 mana, target whale you control gains double strike until end of turn. That's another whale synergy card. Didn't end up using it. I do remember now that I say it out loud, like, there was like a whale that just gave all my whales double strike, I'm pretty sure. And this is 3 mana for a 2/4 whale that you have to then pay to give us individual whale double strike. So I can see why this didn't make it into the deck when that other card exists, but redundancy probably would have been relevant. Also, I think that card was like a lot more expensive, so we'll have to see it when we get to it. But in a vacuum, is this card any good? 3 mana 2/4, fine. You're not excited about those stats, and then you spend 2 to give something double strike, which means at minimum, this is 3 mana 2/4, pay 2, give yourself double strike. This gains double strike until end of turn. Which, like, is that any good? If you assume you're just, like, not blocked, and I realize that double strike has some benefits of, like, blocking in the same way that, like, first strike is really powerful, right? So that's worth considering, but for the sake of discussion, if we assume you're just hitting phase, it's kind of like a 3 mana 4/4, which is good, but not amazing. So when you have to tax on, like, an upkeep of 2 every turn, that 3 mana 4/4 does not look that good. I think this card is just fine. Now, of course, the fact that this can buff a different whale, a whale that's like a 5/5 or a 6/6 or something, and start hitting pretty dang hard, and you can do it at instant speed, so you can wait until after blocks have been declared. It has potential, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's not super exciting. The tides of the deep carry their passengers far from the sheltered shore. Tuvasa's Creator. Ooh, it's a white card. 2 mana, white 1/1 human artificer. Artifacts you control have lifelink. Tap, add, white. Once again, we're seeing a 2-mana creature that taps for 1 mana, which is interesting. We've seen that a decent number today, all outside of green, so I think that makes sense. Like, I feel like green is kind of the only one who should get Land of War Elves, and everyone else should have 2 mana. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Artifacts having Lifelink is interesting, because, like, obviously that only matters if they're, like, artifact creatures, but sure, whatever, it works. This must have been a very early card in the forging process, because I did not go into white at all. But if I did go into white, if I happened to go into white or into, like, artifacts matters, yeah, this card's legit. I think this card's quite good. When war came to Wrath, it brought Tuvasa with it. Huh. Okay. Earthen Seashell, one of the most busted cards in my deck. Earthen Seashell is a 2-mana blue instant. Put 2 cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Yep, that is it. Yeah, I think it's really strong. It's a 2-mana, cheats out 2 cards from your hand. This is one of those cards that if I drew it, I just kind of won the game. Like, it's really good. Holy crap. Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to prevent this mess from spreading. Zarshav, Underqueen of Blight. I don't know what that flavor text has to do with this card, but I do enjoy the art I made for this one. This idea of, like, the seashell that is like a horn and is calling people to the field, and I don't know, it feels good. I like it. I like this card. I like this art. I feel very good about it. I think I tried to include the idea of, like, an Underqueen. You can see, like, it's Underqueen of the Blight, so I gave them, like, a crown. I think that's what I did, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. That card's wild. Hey, it's another Raphael Whale Poet. Worth pointing out, this is a different card. It just has the same name. Raphael Whale Poet is a 5-mana, 4/4 blue legendary creature fish. Oh, yeah. Whenever you cast a blue spell, draw a card. Super legit, but 5 mana is very expensive. I think it's too expensive. Did not make it into the deck, but very, very cool. Raphael, the captain of the Hydra, has said that he wishes to study the fish's poetic language. I feel it doesn't super flow. They're a whale poet, not a fish poet. They actually are a fish in this card, which is weird, like studying the fish's language. I guess, I feel like if I was going to actually make this card and try and make it make sense, I would interpret fish as being like a fish person. Like, weirdly, when we think of fish persons, we think of, like, merfolk. But the idea of having, like, an anthropomorphic fish person in Magic that is distinctly not a merfolk actually is kind of compelling to me. The merfolk in Magic are kind of weird. And, of course, they feel more like people with fish parts than fish people, right? So the idea of, like, a fish person who is, like, you know, a Aquian or something, very distinctly separate from the fish, that then the flavor text of, like, I would like to study the fish's language. Like, yeah, I could see that. That makes sense, because your type is fish, but you're not really a fish. You're a person. I can see that. Anyway, Shaper Summoner, 2-mana, 2/1, blue spirit, tap, add, colorless. Yeah, there's a good reason that I didn't run any of those 2-mana mana dorks, because I had this guy. I think this guy actually made it into the deck, if I remember correctly. I just didn't draw them. Maybe they weren't in the deck. Maybe I ended up cutting them for some reason, but whew, what a wild card that is. I mean, you play it, it might just die immediately, but if it doesn't, turn 3, you got like 6 mana? Hello. Life is an elaborate test of fortitude, and nothing makes it harder than failure. Soren Markov, Shaper Agent. So, yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Like, clearly I made art for this card. It's not a whale, and I was like, nah, it's worth it. I need the ramp. Ugh. Wild. That card, that's... yeah. Another Raphael Whale Poet. Raphael Whale Poet is a 2-mana, 1/1 blue human wizard. When Raphael Whale Poet enters the battlefield, scry 1, and they can tap to draw a card. That's pretty good. I do often think, again, I've mentioned before, human wizard is what I think of Raphael Whale Poet as being. I feel like Raphael Whale Poet is a human wizard. This is another human wizard version. Just they scry an ETB. You can tap them and draw a card. Sort of kind of cool. Like they're like repeatable card draw for only 2 mana and tapping. If it doesn't get pinged down and die, you can do that every turn. Very, very powerful. And then it's ETB. It's not a full card draw, but it is like a soft card draw, right? It's just let's scry a single card. You're getting sort of like a miniature version of my effect on ETB, and then from then on, if I survive, I can keep drawing you cards. I actually quite like it. It's a little bit simple, but yeah, nice. Wine and song are what my life has become. There's naught but living and dying for a poet. Nenurta Akiri, or of Akiri. I don't know why I read it that way. Weird, I don't know who a Nenurta is. I don't think I made any Nenurta cards. Stinging Serpent is a 4 mana 2/2 blue serpent. For generic into blue, for 2 mana, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It fights target creature you don't control. Ooh, that's fun. That's very fun. It's kind of like repeatable removal as long as you have a creature that can survive a fight. That's fun. It's 4 mana. It's only a 2/2. I feel like if this was cheaper, this would be kind of maybe decent. Especially since you have to keep paying the mana to actually activate the effect. But, cool. It does fight target creature you don't control. So as long as your opponents do have creatures, period, this must fight. Which is interesting, I think. Because theoretically, you could use this... Well, actually, that's an interesting question. If there are no creatures, if your opponent has no creatures, are you allowed to activate this ability? Or is there no target, so you're not allowed to activate it? I'm actually not sure. Because you can still target the creature you control. And then it fights a creature. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you're allowed to. That's kind of a shame. This would be kind of fun as like, you know what? Yes, I have this in my deck to kill things, but I have lethal. Let's just spend 4 mana to deal the extra 2 damage I need or whatever. A phalanx is a row of spears. A serpent is a line of teeth. I actually quite like that. That's very fun. Krakatoa Whale is a 2 mana, 2/1 blue whale with tap, add colors. Again, it's just kind of a hard sell when you've got that other shaper summoner, you know? Mush, fish, scrape, sea, 1, 2, 3, and you're out. Cruise ship proverb. Is it? I don't know. But in a vacuum, is this card good? Yeah, this card's great. It's a 2 mana 2/1 that taps for 2. I love this. This is beautiful. Nova Breath is a 4 mana 5/4 blue Leviathan with trample and hexproof. That's so good! What? It's only 4 mana for a 5/4. It's got trample and it has hexproof? That's wild. Leviathans were so good. If I was used to do this again, I think I'd probably just try and go Leviathans. There's so many good Leviathans that I ended up cutting. The few Leviathans did make it into at least the art pool, even if they didn't make it into the actual deck. I think some of them ended up in the sideboard even. But yeah, wild. It spreads darkness to absorb the light, transforming life into darkness. I guess that makes sense. Devour. Devour is a 2 mana blue instant, counter target spell. Target player mills 5 cards. I think I had better 2 mana counter spells than this. That were 2 mana counter spell, gain life or something. That probably should have made it into the deck instead of this. But I thought milling 5 cards was funny. And I did end up with another card that let me mill cards. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe that's enough. Maybe I can mill 20, 30 cards from my opponent and have that be enough to kill them. But I didn't really expect it to happen. I just thought it was funny. And it honestly isn't that great. This card I think would actually be really cool in real Magic if you were playing a a self-mill deck. Because it's not counter target spell, it's controller mills 5 cards. It's target player mills 5 cards. So it couldn't just be straight up I'm going to counter your thing and mill myself 5. And 5 is a lot to get the engine going if you care about stuff in graveyard. That's pretty legit. I think that actually would be a really good spell. I mean, counter target spell, no restriction is already really good for 2 mana in real Magic, so of course it's good, but I don't know. I'd probably pay 3 mana for this in real Magic. I don't really run counter spells, but I think it seems like it seems pretty decent to me. Diversity is our greatest weapon. Talrond, legendary sorcerer. Aww. Juker of the Deep. What is this? I don't remember any of these black cards. Juker of the Deep is a 5 mana, 5/5 black whale. When Juker of the Deep dies, exile target creature an opponent controls until Juker of the Deep is put into its owner's graveyard. Huh. If Juker of the Deep is in a graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Okay, that's all one line. If there was like a line break there, I'd have a weird discussion about what if Juker of the Deep is in the graveyard means. Does that just go off constantly? But it's all one line. So I think it's when it dies, period. First, exile a creature an opponent controls. Okay. This happens until Juker of the Deep is put into its owner's graveyard. Does dying triggers before hitting the graveyard or after? Because if it triggers after hitting the graveyard, then I feel like it would be exiled forever, right? Because it's already in the graveyard by the time the floating trigger of this lasts until entering the graveyard. Maybe? It also might just flicker. I'm not sure. It might just flicker your opponent's stuff, which is not generally a good thing. Then, if Juker of the Deep is in the graveyard, which again, I think when dies triggers do actually trigger after hitting the graveyard, so the answer would be yes, create a 2/2. I think that's right. I think this just, when it dies, exiles an opponent's thing and makes a 2/2, which, like, I think that's pretty good. Seems like a pretty good card to me. But it is a 5 mana 5/5 that doesn't do anything until it dies, so maybe not. Hard to say. I know not why I agreed to it. Perhaps it was a simple case of pity for a useless thing. The Yaniv, breaker of ships. Desperate Stand is a 2 mana blue instant. If you control a swamp and a mountain, you win the game. Like, I can't believe I made 2 you win the game cards. Are you kidding me? Why can't I get cards like this and unplayably overpowered? What the heck? This is so silly. Ugh. You should watch Unplayably Overpowered. We do make some really cool cards, but oh, I wish I could make cards like this. Look at this thing. This is nuts. I mean, you have to run 3 colors, but it's just like, it's just run 3 colors. If you get all 3 colors and cast this spell, you win the game. Like, that's it. That's all it is. What? 100 years ago, if you wished to avoid death, you took a stand on a mountaintop. Akiri. Obviously, this would not have worked in my deck because my deck was mono blue, but even if it did, I would not have run it like we saw with the previous 2 mana you win the game card. Maybe that one was 3 mana. I don't remember what that one cost, but Depraved Whale is a 2 mana 2/3 blue whale. Whenever Depraved Whale or another creature you control dies, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. Pretty okay. Honestly, you could see this effect where it's like whenever a creature dies, draw a card. A creature you control dies, draw a card. And that would already be, like, fine. I don't think that would be a problem if that existed in real Magic, and that effect does exist, although I don't know what the going rate for it is. The fact that you have to pay 1 is probably fine. It's probably not a big deal, but obviously it just really, really highlights how much higher the ceiling could have been, right? But, oh well, it's fine. Their screams and mournful bellows rise from the depths like a warning. Also, it's 2 mana 2/3. Pretty decent stats. Northern Presence is a 3 mana 2/4 blue whale. When Northern Presence enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an aura, equipment, instant, or sorcery card with mana value 6 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So it's a 3-mana 2/4, which ETBs basically searches for any card in your deck. Can't be a creature. Can't be a land. Has to be mana value 6 or less. Yeah. I mean, if this just said, like, ETB, search your library for a non-creature card and put it into your hand, that's almost always going to be the same as what this says. Like, that's pretty good. And it's only 3 mana, right? Sometimes effects like this come down too late to feel relevant, but for 3 mana, search your library for the perfect card that costs 6 mana or less, which is often what you're going to be wanting to search for anyway. Other than creatures, which, you know, legitimate. But for me, like, dang, if I ran this card, I wish I'd run this card. Spend, 3 mana for Northern Presence, find myself Earth and Seashell, boom, just pop off. Yeah, no, I should have run this. This card's rad. Yeah, it's a 2 mana 2. It's 3 mana 2/4. It's not bad. It's totally playable stats. Dang, I wish I'd run this. This card's rad. They've long ago left their whales behind. Now they just chase them. Whale Drifter, my beloved. Whale Drifter is a 4 mana 3/2 blue whale. Whale Drifter can't be blocked. Sweet. And tap, add blue for each island you control. Pretty dang good, especially in a mono deck. It is a little slow. Like, a big problem with my deck was that things really didn't happen till turn 4. So if you turn 4 play Whale Drifter and it dies, then you just play another thing on turn 5. But if it survives, you have like at minimum 8 mana to spend on your turn 5. Like, you can do a lot of stuff with that. So, I love Whale Drifter. Where the waters meet, whales of all kinds congregate. When you look out at the horizon, you see a beautiful sight. Raja, Nautical Guide. I'm pretty happy with this picture, right? It is a whale, which is also an island. The idea is that you can tap it for mana based on islands. I thought that was a fun little, like, nod. It basically is an island since it makes blue mana. Yeah. And then also, you can see there's more whales in the shot because, of course, this is where whales congregate, like it says. Splice Intruder is a 2 mana 1/2 black whale. Whenever a creature you control dies, Splice Intruder deals 1 damage to target creature you don't control. Okay, so it's just a pinger. Might be good enough. Can only ping creatures. It's okay. By splicing, you learn from others. From dying, from failing, from pain. The splicers gain everything, then divide it between themselves. Reaper Ida. Honestly, like, that is very inspiring in that I feel like I could design a really cool black faction called Splicers, which are like about this like very like weird like pain and dying is good, but also the idea that like all thing like very communal, very like communist sort of like socialist. Everything should be divided between all because everything is splicing. Everything is like division is important, and everyone's probably feeling everyone's pain also. Like, there's something interesting there. I could definitely see a very cool black faction based around that flavor text. That's cool. I like that. Bloodshot Veteran is a 4 mana 3/2 red goblin warrior. When Bloodshot Veteran enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. I don't remember seeing this one in the game, but we saw very similar effects, right? Just like ETB, make a bunch of 1/1s, and those are strong. Those are real good, especially when your deck's full of lords and such. Whew, that can overrun fast. Or when they all have haste. Our second attempt has gone a little better. Perhaps we can finish the job tonight. Pharaoh Cool, Azorius Scout. In a vacuum, how good is this? 4 mana 3/2 that ETB creates 2 1/1s. It's sort of like, 5/4 worth of stats. It seems just kind of okay. Obviously, having multiple bodies is actually an upside in, like, a goblin deck where you're trying to, like, give all of your goblins +1/+1 or something. all the time. More bodies the better for that sort of, multiplying that benefit. But I don't know, it seems kind of fine. I feel like you could actually play this for 3 mana in real Magic. Maybe that's way too pushed. I really don't know what the going rate for this effect is. I don't play aggro. But, I guess it's the thing, right? Like, 3 mana to create 3 1/1s is already, like, a pretty good rate. And this is 3 mana create a 3/2 and 2 1/1s. 4 mana is probably the right spot for this. Then again, like, instant speed, 3 mana make 3 1/1s. That's instant speed, so that's like an upside that this doesn't have. But 3/2, I feel like I'd make this like a 3 mana 2/2. I think that's what I would do. 3 mana 2/2. Rabble Rouser is a 1 mana 1/1 green goblin. Whenever Rabble Rouser attacks, if you attacked with creatures with total power 6 or greater this combat, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Nice. So 1 mana 1/1 that can grow. It's not always going to grow, right? Turn 1 it's not going to grow. Turn 2 it's not going to grow. Turn 3 it's probably not going to grow either. But it's one of those interesting pieces that if you get it late in the game and you just throw it down, it's probably growing every combat. It does need to attack, so it could just die to the first block. But it does happen on attack, so if you have the effect, it's going to become a 2/2 immediately, right? So, yeah, I think I like it. Yeah. Goblins live to fight, and to fight, they need only other goblins. Sadar Jabari of the Clan of the Hand. That's true. Meteor Storm! This is the one! Meteor Storm is a 3 mana blue instant. Destroy all non-whales. Draw a card. So, previously, I mentioned, anytime removal comes up, I always mention I kind of cut most of the removal because I had this card, which I love the art for. I actually really like the effect with the 2-color meteors. Anyway, not to get into that too much. The thing I failed to notice, and the reason I noticed even was because I was putting out little update videos. Every week leading up to Magic AI Showdown, I released a little update in case anybody wanted to know how I was working on it, so that it didn't seem like I just disappeared for a month with nothing happening. And I previewed this card. I was like, this card's so cool, it's so busted, and of course, I quite like the art. I was very proud of it. And in the comments, it was mentioned, all non-whales would include your lands. Which, yeah, it would include my lands, wouldn't it? Which makes you wonder, is this card good? I don't actually know the answer. For me, it was kind of bad. Now, I'm sure it has a use case, but if I'm playing like a control-y deck, I need those lands. Unless I have some way of getting those lands back or something, this is hurting me so much more than it's hurting my opponent. Even if it's a one-sided board wipe. Now, if it's late game and I already have like 3 whales on the field and I can blow up the entire game, put it back to 0, but I still have 3 whales, yeah, I probably win from that state. But since I assumed I could use this as my go-to removal, I was like, why would I run a 3-mana kill spell when I have a 3-mana board wipe? A 3-mana one-sided board wipe. So, of course, I didn't run the 3-mana kill spell. I didn't even run the 2-mana kill spell, probably. And, yeah. I think if this card existed, it would be super busted, and it would just be completely busted. That said, I don't know which decks would run this. Not every deck would, right? Like, my deck shouldn't have, probably. Or at least, it should have had other ways of removal in case I didn't get a board made, right? This card still, again, great if I have at least, like, 1 or 2 whales. It's still probably amazing. Wipe the board, attack, win over the next couple turns. But if I'm just using it to stabilize, you can't use it to help get to turn, like, 4, 5, 6, right? Because it's resetting your clock back to turn 1. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on here. Do you think you could make a card that was like, destroy all creatures your opponents control and destroy all lands you control? Like, it's a one-sided board wipe, but it burns all of your lands. Would that be an interesting card design? Could you do that and have that, like, feel right? Because one-sided board wipes, very strong. If you can win the game, then who cares that you don't have any lands because your board's solid. But it's like a huge risk, right? If you like do that one-sided board wipe and then the next turn your opponent board wipes you and then you have literally nothing, you just scoop right there, right? Yeah, I don't know if you can make that card seem interesting. It's an interesting thought experiment, though. Grand Antiquary is a 2-mana, 1/3 blue whale. Whenever Grand Antiquary deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Seems fine. It's a 2-mana 1/3, which I think is an okay stats. I like having a 1/3. I like the defensive body of that. But this wants to be attacking. Give this, like, vigilance. Still not going to make it through a lot of the time, but at least, like... Yeah, I guess that's the thing, is if your opponent has a creature, this isn't going to make it through, so it might as well just become a blocker at that point anyway. I don't know. Take me with you. The children need my expertise. No. Ascendant Master is a 3-mana, 1/3 blue human wizard. For blue, target player draws a card, then you may pay blue. If you do, draw a card. Oh yeah, this card's cool. So 3-mana, 1/3. Again, we're seeing that stat block again. I quite like it. Probably could be cheaper. But for blue, draw a card. Here's the weird thing about this. Since it's not a limited ability, right? The fact that you can just... It's not like you can activate this only once per turn or anything. So, you could just pay... You could just activate this ability twice to draw 2 cards. You don't have to activate this ability and then pay once in response to draw the 2 cards. If you're playing like a team game, you could activate it once to then have you draw a card and me draw... But again, it's target player draws a card. Like, there's no reason for the way this is worded, unless there's some kind of limitation on how often you can activate abilities. I guess if you had something that was like, activated abilities cost 1 more to activate or something, then this is cheaper in that situation, but that's super fringe. This is really just 1 mana draw a card. And 1 mana draw a card is pretty good, turns out. Turns out that's perfectly good. Now, I had Plunderhorn, a 1 life draw a card spell, so I ran that instead. Also, it was a whale. But yeah, this card's busted. This card's super good. Is 3 mana the right cost for this? Maybe? I don't know. He can see the coming of death on all living things, but he seeks to harness it for the greater good. Amphin Wavetide Whale. Of course, in the art I had to include the Wavetide, as is in the name. Amphin Wavetide Whale is a 2-mana, 2/2 blue whale. Whenever Amphin Wavetide Whale or another creature enters the battlefield, draw a card. Seems pretty good. 2-mana, 2/2, draws a card, and then continues drawing cards as other things enter the battlefield. Seems pretty good. It also says another creature enters the battlefield, not under your control. So, yeah. Yeah, seems pretty good to me. I quite like this card. Oh, you're not afraid of the deep blue? Then swim with me. Sling Berserker is a 5-mana, 3/3 red goblin warrior. When Sling Berserker enters the battlefield, you may have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature you control. Interesting. I don't think we saw this card actually get play from B. I assume B saved this card, because I don't remember making any red goblins in mine. But I always find these cards interesting. Like, yes, this is generally a downside. Unless for some reason you have like Enrage or something, or if you want it to be like a sacrifice effect, maybe you want to trigger something. The fact that you could do something with it is interesting. The problem is, it's 5 mana. So, when is this ever going to be something you care about? I don't know. There's also a very good possibility that when B initially saved this, she didn't realize it said you control, and then eventually went, I'm not running that, and didn't actually include it in her deck. That sounds pretty likely, actually, now that I think about it. As his goggles fog over, the goblin stokes his furnace, frying his enemies one by one. Raphael the Gale Breaker. Another Raphael. 5 mana, blue, 3/3, elemental. Again, there's like this interesting story of Raphael forming in my brain of like all these sort of non-legendary things. Like, is this like some sort of elemental incarnation that came about from like Raphael's psyche, but it's not like a legendary, it's not like him exactly himself. It's this thing that was made, or one of many things that were made. I don't know, it's interesting. Raphael the Galebreaker is a 5 mana 3/3 blue elemental with flying for a single blue. Raphael the Galebreaker gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I do love a 1 mana for 2 power fire breathing. It's pretty good, but it's 5 mana. So, I don't know. It makes you wonder, how big do you need to start for that to feel good? 5 mana is a lot, but 5 mana for a 3/3, it survives, then you've got that 5 mana open next turn, you sunk all of it in there, you're now a 13/13, well not 13, a 13/3, but you have flying, you can probably get through. I don't know, maybe that's worth it. Hard to say. Raphael sings in tones as haunting as the mists that veil the fjords of Tarkir. If I remember correctly, when I actually started making the deck, I tried to not include more than like 1 Raphael card, and I wanted to make sure it was actually legendary. So I saved all these cards, but I really didn't plan on running all of them. So if I remember correctly, that's what I did. I don't know. I wanted to pay a nod to Raphael. I hope that we have the card that actually mentions Raphael in here somewhere. I have no idea if I even I'm sure I saved it, so it's got to be here somewhere. Strong Whale Swimmer is a 5 mana 4/4 blue whale. When Strong Whale Swimmer enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a whale creature card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. As good as that seems, because whales are in the whole deck. It's a 5 mana 4/4 that also tutors. Cool. Whales tend not to be the like combo pieces. I have enough good powerful whales. I'd probably rather tutor up like an instant or a sorcery or something, as previously mentioned. So the other tutors we've seen that like can hit anything or can hit non-creatures, probably more useful as tutors for this specific deck. If I had some like really powerful ETBs, then tutoring up a whale is probably relevant, but tended to not be the case. The whales were just big bodies most of the time. That said, how good is this just generally? 5 mana 4/4. Yes, you'd have to care about whales, which I did, but if you just were playing in any random deck, you probably don't care about whales. I guess what's kind of interesting to this is like the Squadron Hawk effect. Is Squadron Hawk the thing I'm thinking of, right? Like ETB, find another like copy of this card. In a four card format, like a format that where you can have four copies. Is this good enough just as a 5 mana 4/4 find another 5 mana 4/4 that can find another form of, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that actually good enough? I assume no. Give them flying and probably yes. But probably not good enough if that's your only target. Their stomachs are always hungry. Spell Lock is a 3 mana blue instant, counter target spell, draw a card. Yeah, I mean, 3 mana, counters anything, great, and you draw a card, so you're not investing too much, you get to have your card back. It's just really solid. There's like no good reason this card didn't end up in the deck. I had better 3 mana counter spells, to be honest, but I guess the question is, did I have better 2 mana counter spells? I might have. Because 2 mana is a significant difference when it comes to counter spells. Our tethers to you will remain a part of our daily lives. Urabrask clan motto. As far as just general magic, I imagine this is pushed for counter spells. Like it's anything and it draws a card. You can get much better than that, right? Probably? I don't know. Natural Confusion. Can't believe I drew this. It's so funny. Natural Confusion is a 2 mana blue instant. Target player draws 3 cards, then you draw 3 cards. That's right, it's 2 mana, draw 6. Was this in my deck? Yes, it was. And look at that flavor text. We thought we were learning something about numbers, but now we just see chaos. Raphael, Warrior Poet. And you know what? I think this might have been the original Raphael. I don't think that this flavor text came from me asking the AI to make me Raphael Whale Poet cards. I think this was the original one. And when I made it, I decided to name the deck Raphael Whale Poet, even though the original flavor text was Warrior Poet. I think that's actually true now that I think about it. Which is weird. What a weird card that has nothing to do with whales. That is the thing that spawned all this Raphael nonsense. I could be misremembering, but I think that's actually correct. What a great card, though. Just 2 mana, draw 6? Yes. Please. I would like this spell, thank you very much. This is the kind of just actually completely busted cards that I want to see from AI Magic, because it's fun to do stupid power level nonsense. It's cool. I can't believe that's what I drew for this. It's so funny. Masked Argus, I forgot about you. Yeah, you were one of the non-whales that were good enough to get art. Masked Argus is a 3-mana 2/2 blue bird. It is flying, and when Masked Argus enters the battlefield, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. 3-mana sorcery, cheat a creature out of any graveyard, and a 2/2 flyer. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, I love it. Could you actually print this in real Magic? I doubt it. That's so strong. I doubt it. I doubt it. Yeah. You could maybe make this if it was like 3-mana 2/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, put target creature with mana value like 3 or less, or was like creature, it becomes a 2/2 or something. I could see either one of those being potentially interesting. Obviously, the it becomes a 2/2 is still very exploitable, because oftentimes you don't care how big the creature is. It doesn't impact how much mana value something is worth, because it has the onboard effect is the more important thing, or the ETB or whatever. So probably, yeah, if you were going to actually print this, you probably would have it cheat out something of like mana value, something or less. Maybe that's 3, maybe it's 2, I don't know. Anyway. His feathers shimmer with glory, and his talons gleam with deadly purpose. Yet his song, as much as his eyes, tell the world of his wrongful imprisonment. Wendy, singer. Bramblescale Wall! I love a wall. It's a 2-mana 0/3 wall. It has Defender and tap. Bramblescale Wall can block an additional creature this turn. I think that's useless, unfortunately. I like the idea of walls that can block more than one creature. I think that should be a thing. That should be a normal thing. You could even keyword it. It could just be like... You could even have it be like Defender 1, Defender 2. Have it be like part of the Defender keyword. Just have it be like a core mechanic that walls have. That would be rad. Anyway. With this card, since it taps to block an additional creature, it wouldn't be able to block any more creatures because it's tapped. Unless that effect overrides the fact that, like, if you had something that said, like, this creature can block an additional creature, would that override the fact that it needs to be untapped to block? I don't think it would, right? It is allowing you to ignore the one creature blocked restriction. It's not, but if it did say tap, Bramblescale Wall blocks an additional creature, right? Or like, you know, target creature becomes blocked by Bramblescale Wall, then suddenly that would work. You could block something, once the block is declared, you then tap it in response, and the other thing becomes blocked. That would be actually pretty cool. Having something become blocked after blockers are declared, but before damage. Would that work? I think it would work. Yeah. In the same way that something can, like, leave combat after blockers are declared, but before combat sometimes. The sewers of Ravnica swarm with worms. These vile things feed on refuse, seeping from the muck to choke the Ravnican defenders. Ixidor Drow Jailer. Sure. Run Amok is a 2-mana, 1/1 green goblin rogue. For 3 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on Run Amok. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, put a +1 counter on Run Amok. That's going to scale decently. Really, it's a 2-mana 1/1 that whenever you cast a spell, it gets a counter. But it also is a, you know, it's a decent mana sink. If you want to leave mana up, and then it goes around the table, and nothing you got to do with that mana with, so you spend 3 mana, why not? Yeah. I like this card a lot. I think this card's probably, like, pretty reasonable. Yeah. I think it's strong, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's, like, just mediocre, but I don't know if it's too strong for real Magic. His hunger for life is only satisfied by the corpse of those who crossed him. Mastery of the Unseen is a 5-mana blue instant. Draw 2 cards, then put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Holy crap, that's strong, but also 5 mana. If this was cheaper, yes, definitely. If this was 5 mana... Okay, is 5 mana too much for this effect? It's a very strong effect, so I think probably not. I think this is probably actually, like, the correct cost for this spell. But unfortunately, that makes it really hard to play, because 5 mana is just hard to, like, weave into a turn, but... Once you accept this task, you will do it well. Once you accept this task, you will do it well. This is my truth. Dionetha, Master Scryer. Huge Talon Whale is a 3-mana 3/4 blue whale. When Huge Talon Whale enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. Cool. It's a 3-mana 3/4. Decent stats. When it ETBs, it bounces something. Nice. I love it. If the world could sing its sorrows, Talon would be its bellows. Thresher Whale is a 2-mana 2/2 blue whale. When Thresher Whale deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Decent, doesn't have evasion, so after a few turns it's going to just get blocked and die, but it's okay. He's right on the money. I mean, the boats really should sink. Samsaran Sailor. But yeah, it's a bear that draws you cards if it connects. It's rad. Change of Heart is a 2-mana blue instant. Change of Heart. No. Change target non-human creature's base power and toughness to 3/3. Draw a card. Ooh, that's a cool effect I don't think I've seen before. Just permanently. Just from now on, this non-human creature's base power and toughness are 3/3. Cool. That can make something smaller. That can make something bigger. It's instant speed, so you could just do it where you don't really care that it's permanent. You could use it just to, like, kill something because of the blockers are declared, and you make your thing bigger, or you make their thing smaller, and they die. But also, yeah, if you just want to, like, make a small thing a 3/3, cool. And it's only 2 mana, and it draws you a card. I quite like this. Those that choose their destiny at their own hand do so for reasons greater than themselves. As I am of the sea, so am I of their choosing. Raphael Whale Poet. Ooh, was this the first Raphael Whale Poet? I doubt it. This is probably this comes from me searching for Raphael Whale Poet, but I legit don't remember. It's super impossible to know for sure. But cool. Those that choose their destiny at their own hand do so for reasons greater than themselves. As I am of the sea, so am I of their choosing. I wish I ran this card. That card's cool. Erebos Skirmisher is a 4-mana 2/3 white human knight. It has first strike, and creatures you control get +1/+1. Dang. Pretty good little lord. 4 mana, but first strike, creatures get +1/+1. It's at minimum a 4-mana 3/4 first strike. That's not too shabby. He could not make war with any other faction. He had no hope but to use force of arms. Okay, I didn't follow that one, but okay. Slobbering Squealer is a 3-mana 2/3 blue whale. Tap, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of cards in your library. Yes. Another win the game card. I forgot about this one. Yeah, this definitely didn't make play because it was unplayably overpowered. Dang, I wish I could make cards like this in that series. Look at this. Look at this. Like, you wouldn't play this. You would feel like a dingus. Really? I mean, okay, so it's 3 mana for a 2/3. Your opponent has 1 turn to deal with it. If your opponent can't deal with it, you tap and you just mill your opponent a number of cards equal to how many cards are in your library. So that's what that is, right? It's target player mills cards. X is your library, not their library. If it was their library, it would guarantee knock out any opponent ever. Technically, if you have less cards in your library than your opponent has in theirs, they might survive, or they would survive, at least in the short term. But, I mean, oftentimes everyone has the same size library, right? Like, I drew on my turn, you drew on yours. I guess that makes this kind of interesting in, like, a blue deck. Like, I might have milled myself or drawn extra cards. I might have a smaller library than you. But it's 3 mana. Like, it's just like, okay, turn 3 I play this, turn 4 you're dead. Like, just... So many clamshells and mackerel fins. What could they possibly want with me? Gull Catch, Whale Catcher. Gull Catch is kind of a cool name. Look at the numbers! 2 mana blue instant. Look at the numbers in your head. If it's 0 or more, draw a card. I forgot what this card actually did, but I did remember this card by name of like, oh yeah, there was a card that tells you to look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. It's a 2 mana blue instant. It reads, look at the numbers in your head. Period. If it's the number in your head, 0 or more, draw a card. Numbers rule. The mind will play favorites. This is just 2 mana draw a card. There's no reason you'd ever play this card. Also, it doesn't functionally work because there's no rules for looking at numbers in your head. But, like, if we just pretend that that works, it's still just 2 mana draw 1. It's never useful. Don't ever play this, but I had to save it. Look at this card. It's beautiful. Dream Sweep is a 3 mana blue instant. Counter target spell. You gain X life. X is that spell's mana value. That's right. We are back at the beginning. If you make me laugh, I'll grant you 3 wishes. If you make me cry, you'll regret it. You will regret it for the rest of your life. Yakora, Gur from Kessig. I'm pretty sure I missed the flavor text on the first card. And we'll just double check. Yep, that's the Honored Rogue, and that's the Octopus. Well, thank you for joining me once again. This has been The Shortlist, our review of all of the cards saved when forging for Magic AI Showdown Set 1. If you haven't seen that video, please check it out. If you haven't... Wait, no, that's the same thing twice. If you have, I don't know, watch it again. Thank you, everybody. I've been DarcyBits. Have a good night. We'll catch you next time for the final batch of cards from the shortlist. I split them up into 3-card batches because, whew, takes a while to get through them, especially when every card is worth discussing. Sometimes in the other videos, I go through more cards, but it's just because I look at them and I go, that sucks, and I move on. And here, there's a lot to say, because they're cool, because they're good. Have a good night, everyone. I'll catch you next time.